one of the things I learned from doing all of this was the science of how to tell a story. Because fundamentally, that's all we're ever going to do in our lives. Okay, and look, even forgetting about what we're doing here, you know, we'll talk about this, but the human condition in human history has always been about storytelling. All humans are always in the behavior change business. You're trying to get people to do something, or harder, you're trying to get them to not do something, or stop them doing something that they're doing now, which is kind of trickier, or you're trying to get them to do more of something, or you're trying to get them to do less of something, but fundamentally you're trying to convince them, and you're trying to get them to do something. And if you're going to get them to do something, you better get good at telling stories. Most good things that happen in your life will come from you getting angry, okay? Getting angry about something, just being angry enough to want to do something about it. And I got really fed up with hearing how we're all storytellers. Kept reading these articles about we're all storytellers. I'm like, are we? You know, it seems a bit silly. It seems a bit like overblown as to what we're saying. So I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to go and talk to some real storytellers. So I sat down with a film director, a documentary maker, a teacher, a journalist, a fine arts sculptress, the president of a quilting guild, a restaurateur who said he didn't own restaurants, he told stories through the medium of food. Have to say I was a little bit skeptical of him. But he does run Yoacha in town, and so he does know what he's doing. And then I sat down with a vicar who technically is paid to tell the greatest story ever told, right, as it's told. And I wanted to understand from him how he did it. The problem with storytelling is that you've been told it's not right. You've got to put away childish things. This is story time. Sit down on the carpet, cross your legs in that weirdly uncomfortable way, and, you know, and I will tell you a story. It came to mean childish stuff. And of course, you know, as the Bible will tell you, now that I am a man, I put away childish things. We don't do story anymore. You know, we do documents and we do information and we put all sensible stuff together. The other thing is stories also come to mean lying. Oh, he weaves a good story, that one. Oh, he's a very good storyteller. Basically means he's a liar. Stories aren't lies. Stories are the most powerful information mechanisms that exist on Earth. They're not lies, they can be used for lies, which is what makes them dangerous. We are hardwired for story. By the way, you'll have to get up pretty early in the morning to find a better storyteller than Margaret Atwood. But we're hardwired for it. We can't avoid it, right? We've done it all our lives. This is how we use to pass on information. I'm going to give you some books in here that are very useful to read for storytelling. First off is survival. When you didn't know, should I go over there? Should I eat that red berry? What's that thing with 4 legs that's growling? When you didn't know these things, how are you going to know? Well, someone's going to tell you, aren't they? They're going to tell you a story of what their experience was, the information, and then bring it back to you. Before we had Google, we used to have old people, okay? And you'd ask them things, right? And they'd tell you stuff. Right? Things they'd experienced. It's why, by the way, in most tribal societies and non-technological based societies, older people are venerated and respected rather than ignored. Okay? It's one of the problems in Western society, because they used to be, because the older tribal members were the people who kept everybody alive. And that's why they were more respected, because they were more experienced. And if you think about it, what happens with story is, story in most cases is a mimic of what happens in the human brain. The human brain goes off and it takes information, it brings it back, it assimilates it, it brings it down, and then it applies it to a life situation. That's what happens in most stories. Someone pops off, they go off and have an adventure, they learn something, they bring it back to the tribe or to the center, it's assimilated that information, and then it's applied. So that's why storytelling as a mechanism and as a scientific process is a mirror of how the brain works. So any of you who ever get to work in marketing, you won't always have a unique story. So let's say you work in retail, Tesco, Sainsbury's, Iceland, whatever, right? There's only 2 things you can say, price and quality. And you'll see them say it every time. Good on food, little on price. You know, good food at a price you can afford. Good food costs less. That's all they'll ever say. Insurance, we'll save you X on your X insurance. Travel, get away from it all as if your life's utterly terrible and we're all living in Dickensian squalor. I don't go on holiday because I hate my life. I go on holiday because I might want to experience something different, but for some reason the travel industry hasn't noticed this. But basically, he is talking about the fact that he has to get up every week and tell a story everyone's already heard. It's not like this Christmas there's going to be room in the inn and the story's going to change. It's not like this Easter Pilate's going to go, oh, do you know what, let him off and I'm not listening to anything anyone's saying. You know, it's the same story. He's got to find an amazing new angle on it. And that's what advertising is, finding a new angle. That's what storytelling is, finding a new angle on a story that you think, you know, boy gets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back, whatever. But there's only 7 basic plots, according to Campbell. Come on to that later. Watkins talks about efficiency. If you're going to tell a story, this is if you're going to get something down, if you're going to get 4 hours of content down to a 6-second video, you've got to be really efficient. Everything's got to work really hard. You see this if you read really good detective stories. You'll go back at the end and you'll go back over everything. You'll go, oh, that's why that happened there, and then this, and then that. When you go back over a Netflix series of 12 episodes and they've tied it up at the end, you go, oh, that's it. Efficiency. Every brilliant thing you ever do, from strategy to storytelling, is not defined by what you put in. It's entirely defined by what you choose to leave out. This was the restaurateur. I thought this was quite an interesting story. Great storytelling, you shouldn't have to put huge amounts of effort in. You should have to put some effort in, because that's what makes you feel part of the story. You can't just tell everybody everything in the first 2 pages. Why would you read the other 200? You know, but it is about, why not do this? I can't stand Dan Brown, right? But I remember reading the Da Vinci Code, ironically, on a flight to Rome. Okay, but when I was reading it, I got to the end of the flight and I couldn't remember reading a word. It had been like 2.5 hours and it had sort of read itself. And I thought, what a wonderful, you know, whether I liked it or not, I thought, what a wonderful storyteller. Lee Child is very similar to that. Kate talks about, if you're telling a story, you should feel like you're telling a story to someone, just like you're chatting to someone. If you're trying, by the way, this is an advertising lesson. If you try and move millions of people, you won't move anyone. Charities understand this. It's a principle called the identifiable victim effect. 1 million people starving, I can't get my head around. That child starving. And the best example of this in storytelling is Anne Frank. 6 million as a number is incomprehensible. One scared little girl hiding in an attic is entirely relatable. Emily is a fine art sculptress, has a ridiculously overly expensive place on the King's Road. I've no idea why people pay those prices, but hey ho, that's capitalism. And what I thought was great about her was, this is a great lesson for if you're telling stories as an advertiser. Just start with the emotion. What do I want someone to feel? Happy? Scared? Disgusted? Whatever. Humans have 6 primary emotions, 5 of them are negative. So it's absolutely fine to make people feel scared or disgusted, right? That's what kept us, by the way, that's what kept us alive. Because we assumed it was bad. And it probably was back in the day, it just isn't anymore. The vicar understood more about marketing than any marketer I've ever spoken to. And I said to him, just talk to me a little bit about like your story, if you're talking about whatever. And he said, I don't care if anyone listens to a word I say. I don't need anyone to remember a single word of what I've talked about. The only thing that's important is how they felt when they left my church. Did they feel better than when they came in? I thought, what an amazing lesson for marketers. Did you get people to feel better about something after they'd seen your commercial, after they'd seen your content, after they'd read your ad, whatever, right? And then I said, have you got anything else you want to add to that? He said, yeah. He said, 2 things matter. One is how they felt when they left. And the second one was, do they want to come back next week? And I thought it's the best lesson I'd ever heard from marketing. Acquisition and retention. Did you get them to feel something? Acquisition. Do they want to come back again? Retention. Brilliant. That's why storytelling is so powerful for marketing, whatever you're marketing. There's a thing in behavioral science called the Ikea effect. You fall in love entirely with things you make yourself. Okay? It's alternatively known as the eBay dilemma, because people overestimate how much people are willing to pay for their stuff on eBay by between 30 and 40% on average. Because to you, it's your bike, it's your dress, it's your top, they're your shoes. For someone buying it, just a pair of shoes, my friend. That's all it is. They don't care, they don't know. So it's also a way, by the way, eBay will tell you, if you want to get people to pay more for your stuff, create a story. Sat down with the guys from eBay. You got to tell, can't just be pair of shoes, it's this, it's whatever. Tell the story of where you got them, where you wore them. If it's that bike, you tell the story about it's how your first child learned how to ride his bike, where he learned to ride, whatever. People will pay you more, a lot more, if they know the story behind the item. So quickly, you've got to make your story 4 things: simple, distinct, relevant, and brilliant. If you put one message in your ad, 42% of people take it out. If you then add a second message in, only 20% of people take out that message. Now you can go, yeah, but it's sort of the same. No, but that was your primary message. If you introduce a second message, you reduce the efficacy by 50%. Then if you add in another message, drops to 15. Do one thing well. If you've got one thing to say, all good strategy and all good story is not defined by what you choose to put in. It's entirely defined by what you choose to leave out in order to give what you want to say the space to get heard. If you've got a 6-second video, write a 2-second one and stretch it. If you only got 20 seconds for your ad, write a 10. It'll feel really, really flabby, right? Normally, I always say to people, if you've got 6 seconds to do a video, design a GIF, right? Then stretch it out. Now, second is you've got to be completely different. Every one of my presentations you'll come to learn has a quote in it from Coco Chanel. Okay, he was a genius marketer. But to be irreplaceable, you've got to be different. Genuinely got to be different. Otherwise, someone will just come along and replace you. The reason it's got to be different is the human brain is only programmed to notice the noticeably different. It's what kept us alive. What you did is you edited out everything you thought you'd seen before to focus on a threat. And in the modern world, this is what you do. You only notice new things. The human brain doesn't notice anything else. It just edits it out, which is why you have to be different. Why you have to be not unique. Nothing's unique, apart from your fingerprint. But you do have to be different. The idiosyncratic fit effect. Humans love things they believe have been designed for them. We all do. We all think we're special. Secret exceptionalist narrative. We all imagine we're Harry Potter and Hagrid's coming down to tell us we're a wizard. Everyone sitting in this room believes they are the lead actor in a play called You, right? And everyone else is a bit part player who you can take them or leave them. They'll come on, they'll leave, no one will care because you're the main character, right? It's known as idiosyncratic fit. And finally, it has to be brilliant. So in my last minute, I'm going to talk to you about the high concept. Whatever you're doing, if you're developing a product or a service, or even if you want to get bought in an interview, you have to understand your high concept, developed by Don Simpson in the 80s in Hollywood. Hollywood on average gets between 200 and 250 film pitches a day, each studio. What happens is they arrive, they get put on a desk, then you're busy and you do your life, then they get swept by an assistant into the bin at the end of the day, and the following morning another 250 arrive. So you've got to how do you get yours read? How on earth do you get someone to understand that yours is brilliant, yours is undeniable, you are undeniable? How? You develop a high concept, which is basically how do you sell your thing in the shortest amount of words to get the most amount of money? Alien, the film, brilliant film, Ridley Scott, Sigourney Weaver, is seen to be in Hollywood the second best high concept ever sold in. I'll tell you the best one in a minute. Which was Jaws in space. That's how it was sold into the studio. It's Jaws in space. It's a big monster and it's set in space. Jaws had just come out, it's 1977, made millions. Space, everyone was loving a bit of it at the time. Star Wars, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica. Jaws in space, like, right, where do I sign? Where give you the millions now. It's a really simple concept. Boy discovers he's a wizard. That's good. Kids love magic. Kids love kids. Kids love stories where kids are the main characters, because you often don't get to be the main character, do you? And your kid is just told what to do, where to go, what to eat, when to go to bed. So people love empowered kids, right? He discovered he's a wizard. Brilliant. Man's forced to live the same day over and over again. Groundhog Day. There you go. Got it. Brilliant. Where'd you want your money? Sounds good, that. Brilliant. Sounds interesting. Seven, the film. I'm selling in the concept. What is it? It's a serial killer. Everyone loves a bloody serial killer. Can't get enough of it. In Hollywood, death, murder. Everyone loves a bit of it. Safe storytelling, you see. You're not being murdered. You're just experiencing something. Seven deadly sins. Love a bit of that. Sounds ace. Don't know what it is. By the way, and you need to do it in 8 words, by the way. Seth Godin, the brilliant marketer, said, if you can't state your position in 8 words, you haven't got one. You need to be able to do it in 8 words. The reason it's 8 words, by the way, in advertising is because that's the amount of information you can take in when you're driving past a poster on average speed. Okay, 8 words. Just do it in 8 words. By the way, the most high concept film apparently ever sold into Hollywood was Snakes on a Plane. Right? That is seen as the example of the best high concept ever sold in. Because basically you could come out of that film going, I thought that was dreadful. But no one ever came out of Snakes on a Plane going, I'm absolutely disgusted. I had no idea what that was going to be about. When George W. Bush on 9/11 was told by his aide, who leant into his ear and said the words, Mr. President, America is under attack, and told him that America was facing its worst day since December the 7th, 1941, when Pearl Harbor was bombed. Do you know what he was doing? He was reading a story. He was reading The Hungry Caterpillar, actually, to a bunch of elementary school children. Do you know what he did? He finished it. He sat there and he finished the story. That's how important storytelling is. You should finish the story. Thanks for listening to mine.